Hello, beautiful Aquarians. These are going to be our messages for the next 2 or 3 months. Even though they're coming out in July, they will extend for 2 or 3 month periods. So between, let's say, July and end of September, somewhere there, August, September, that's when you will more likely see the majority of the message that's come through in your life. All right, for those of you who are new to my channel, I don't focus on predictions. My absolute passion is to help you remember who you truly are, and that is a divine being that is free of limitations. And our limitations are part of our human existence, but our limitations is also what limits us in terms of what we achieve, what we want, what we desire, and what we manifest. So I focus much less on predictions and much more on how you predict your future. Some things are written in stone, very few. Majority of the things that we experience in everyday life is a process of our own creation. The only challenge with that is that most of us are not aware of this because we are halfway asleep. So my aim is to, and my passion is to help you remember how to awaken, and once you awaken, you realize who you truly are, which then your potential virtually becomes unlimited to you. All right. The number 8 is shown here, and I'm clearly hearing the month of August. I feel for many of you, this is a time of exciting news, and this news seems to be surrounding around some sort of a completion. As I'm saying this, I'm getting this pressure in my head, in my ears, and it's also affecting my throat. So those of you who are very sensitive, you may begin to feel this right now as I'm speaking to you, and I'm asking, what is this about? And I hear the word commitment. So there is some exciting news about some commitment that it's either in a process of completion, or you are completing a period of difficulties or a period of trials around some sort of a commitment. Now, this does not have to be a commitment you have to a romantic partner. This can be, first and foremost, commitment you have to yourself about anything in life, commitment you have to a project, commitment you have to a job, commitment you have to an association, commitment you have to someone as an obligation, commitment you have obviously to a partner, a loved one, a romantic partner, or a friend. So commitment covers many bases, but I'm seeing this completion, and I'm being reminded my throat is seizing off. It has to do with communication, either the level of communication you have been holding back, or communication that needs to happen in order for something else to begin. And can I be more specific, please? For those of you who have had something sitting on their chest for quite a while, this is symbolically showing me that by getting it out, you will begin a process of a new beginning. So this could be something you wanted to say to your partner and you haven't, and because of it you've been holding on to some energy, and it's making you feel stuck or complacent or not feeling complete, or maybe complete is not the right word. You get the picture. So that could be some of it. And once you say it, for a moment there, it may cause a bit of apprehension, but then once you say it, the air is cleared and everything starts to climb up to being normal, or it starts to look out. It starts to look better. So that's in a commitment, in a loving relationship. If this is a situation at work and you have been sitting on something important but have not been able to get it out, this is a good time for you to get out either your idea or speak to someone about a problem that you have, so that you can finally find some sort of an amicable solution. So this can be around work. This can also apply, notice this can apply to any relationship, but those are the samples that are being given to me. For others of you, this is about expressing your dissatisfaction in some sort of a commitment and realizing what's done, it's done. There is no point in prolonging it, and then addressing whatever the issues are and allowing yourself to move on. Now, the moving on symbolizes this completion. So perhaps some of you will move on or walk away from something that has had you scratching your head for quite some time, and that's a metaphor for what do I do with this? The idea of transformation is also being shown. So between now, whenever you hear this, and maybe the end of August for many of you, there's going to be a period of perhaps transitioning out of one area to another. So out of one relationship to another, out of one, although I would never suggest jumping from one relationship straight to the next. But when I say relationship in this context, I mean a commitment. This could be, again, association, job. There's a lot of connection around job here, or work, because a lot of it seems to be financial or physically oriented. Or it could, for some of you, be a commitment you have to a partner, not necessarily a romantic one, or a partner in a work environment. Or in a job, in a work environment. And then I hear the words, unleash your powers once and for all. I'm asking for more translation. So I'm not going to translate it too much because I want you to have your own translation. When you hear this, unleash your power once and for all. Notice what comes up for you in terms of thoughts, ideas, or memories, okay? Because this statement, this phrase will trigger something in you. But can I say a little bit more in depth of what that means? When you understand your own truth, or more importantly, when you finally commit to being true to you, then the world, as if by magic, opens up to you and you begin to receive gifts. This sounds to me like it's a statement about not allowing yourself to be true to you, either by the way you express your individuality, either because you felt something and you didn't want to say it, which was said at the beginning, I believe. Not expressing your true identity as is without any modifications. So that's a nice way of saying being who you are without trying to be somebody else or anything of that sort. There's a strong indication here of you needing to unleash your raw power. No, that does not mean you get angry at somebody and punch them in the nose. That's actually not a sign of power. That's a sign of feeling powerless. All right. When I wrote the name, the word Aquarius, the moth was being shown to me. So moth to me is a symbol that that to me symbolizes always looking somewhere else, believing the grass is greener on the other side. So I am not saying that this is symbolic for most of you. For some of you, perhaps, we have these moments once in a while. Those are normal things that we feel. But if we begin to be stuck in those thoughts of grass is always greener on the other side, then often what ends up happening is we end up building an inner conflict, a lot, which is resentment for being where you are right now. So if you are dissatisfied with your current situation, whatever it may be for you, looking at someone else having it better than you and then being angry that you don't have it the same, rather than doing that, and that's going to be a message for some of you, rather than doing that, commit to yourself more fully and realize that your potential of having whatever this other person has is just as great. You are only not following your truth or your intuition. Very interesting. I'll let you digest that. It feels like most of these messages will be channeled. I have cards put out, but I don't even know if I'm going to go through them. So that message is important. for others of you, the message is, what do you feed yourself? What do you find outside of you that makes you temporarily think you are better for having that, for being that, or for being with that person than the way you are right now? In other words, watch out for wishful thinking. That is not to say that we don't have wishes, all the time. But if we get stuck on just the wishing part, but not acknowledging that whatever this is, we need to partake in the process of receiving that. When you realize that whatever wishing thing you're wishing for is part of your commitment to yourself, and realizing it, you're much better off spending time in focusing on what it is that you might want to do in order to achieve that thing that you wish for. I'm hoping this is going to make sense, because it's just beautifully flowing. In other words, commit to yourself that this time you will stand by you. That's an interesting phrase. It means you will stay true to yourself. You will stay true to you, and that statement will hit different types of situations. My mind is racing crazy, but I think I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay, and I'm remember what I said at the very beginning, that I think I said something along the lines that my absolute passion is to help you remember who you are and how powerful you truly are, which is you are a divine being without limitations. That is why this information is coming through, because the true power, the true potential always lies within you, but your potential will be limited by what you think. And what you think stems from your belief system. Your belief system essentially tells you who you are, which incidentally, some may call your truth. So it is important that you pay attention to what your truth is, because the moment you connect with what your truth is, or another way of saying, when you connect with what's important to you, when you are no longer in denial of what makes you you, then you begin the process of embracing it and then taking the steps towards realizing it. And whether that's passion, whether that's being in a committed, loving relationship, whether it's being in an abundant situation. And that's not to say that, because there's a thought coming that somebody's saying, well, it's easier said than done. If you have a job that pays minimal wage and you don't have other opportunities, you may wish for all abundance all you want, you're not going to get it. Absolutely correct. Yes. And no, I am not saying that tomorrow something magically is going to change. Maybe it will for some of you. But what I am saying is that we draw or attract to us that which we believe is true for us. Therefore, if the example is that someone is in a low-paying job, and it's not just something temporary to get person from point A to point C, but if this is something that's consistently in the person's life, then that person might want to look at their own internal dialogue and ask themselves this question: what is my truth about abundance? What do I really truly believe about money? Not what do I want to believe, not what I want to do with it, but what do I truly believe about it? And chances are, if this is something you are experiencing, whether it's a low-paying job or a shitty environment you're in, or a terrible relationship or marriage, or a terrible set of circumstances. Now, I'm not saying it's going to magically disappear. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that the moment you begin to recognize that without blame, is the moment where you are shedding light on what is true for you. In other words, what your truth is. And truth is something that you will end up living, because you create based on your truth. So you might find, let's say you are in a low-paying job, and you might find that when you do some deep soul searching, you begin to recognize that you have some challenges around wealth and money. You might realize that you growing in a family where everything was very tight, where finances in particular were very tight, and you barely had basic things to get through, you will begin to realize that your truth about wealth is one that's rooted in poverty. And there is no way getting away from that other than shifting the perception of what wealth is. So the moment you begin to realize that is the moment where you can look at all your life and kind of connect the dots and go, wow, I can see how this belief system is what has been responsible for creating majority of what I have, particularly that which I struggle with. And this is when enlightenment happens, because by beginning to realize that, you are now having a much greater awareness. And the moment you have awareness is the moment where you gain freedom. And awareness allows you to transition from having one perception to moving into having another perception. So you might begin to start looking at things from a different perspective. You might start looking, for example, at money as nothing more and nothing less other than a source of exchange, or an exchange of such. And as a result of looking at it just as an exchange, you can also look at it as, well, it's like battery. It feeds and then it needs feeding. It's a natural flow of life, give and receive. And you might find that that in order for you to attract more money or attract more loving relationships, you might need to shift and change the way you feel towards money in terms of your own value. Do you feel you are truly worthy of having a lot of money? Do you feel you are worthy of a great relationship? And if you have been one that is not doing very well, that you might want to look at your upbringing and ask yourself, what have I learned about relationship when I was young? And chances are 9 times out of 10, you'll very quickly realize that the relationships you tend to attract are the ones that you grew up around seeing, whether it be your parents, whether it be your relatives, whatever, whether it be you with parents, parents with themselves, whatever that may be, whatever you have experienced is, for a prolonged period of time, is what became your belief system, which essentially was what become your truth. Your truth is what dictates your experiences. So always remember this. Your level of awareness dictates your experiences. So the moment you shift your awareness, your experiences begin to shift as well. Okay, let me go through cards very quickly. Oh, one more thing. When I was shuffling cards, I heard, if you are Aquarius, what would you want to ask yourself? And I actually wrote, what would I want to ask myself if I was an Aquarius? And what came to me right away was what direction to take. So clearly there is an indicator here that many of you, if not most of you, are in some sort of a challenging position. It does not mean there is anything bad, but it does mean that there seems to be a set of circumstances or movement in circumstances, and you are either looking at taking different directions, you are trying to figure out what directions to take, or you are trying to figure out whether you should be taking a different direction or a new direction. And that could be in pretty much any area of your life. And what card came was the nightingale. So this is the alchemical symbol for air. This is your thoughts, this is your expression. And this little bird, whenever I see this beautiful bird, to me it stands on the top of the world, and it sings its little heart out, or throat out. It is expressing who he or she is. So a lot of this will be around how you express yourself, whether in a relationship, in a job, how you express yourself through a job, through a hobby. You guys get the picture. And I think what was the message that we said at the very beginning? Embrace something about embracing your gifts. And I don't remember what phrase it was channeled, but something about embracing your gifts and allowing the truly magnificent part of you out. Is very important here. You, like most of us, you are transitioning from being one way to being another way, except you're not transitioning to be anything other than who you are. You are transitioning You are transitioning, and that is you rediscovering who you really are by looking beyond your limitations. So whatever you have put limits on in terms of your expression, it is important for you to decide if you in fact want to continue choosing to suppress who you are or your own truth. Whether that's expressing yourself through art, expressing yourself differently in a commitment, expressing yourself differently as a way of doing a job. Let the word expression come to you in whatever way it's meant for you to come. All right. What are some of the areas that you will be dealing with or that is being affected? Four of Coins is in reverse is coming up. So the moment I saw, sorry, Six of Coins, the moment I saw this card, it told me, okay, so many of you will have tendencies to hold back, whether you are holding back emotionally, whether you're holding back mentally, whether you're holding back how you express yourself, whether you're holding back financially, you are afraid of letting things go. And that generally comes from a feeling of lack or unworthiness on some level. So because this is coming through, that sort of belief will, if you are holding back, notice why you have a tendency to hold back, and this is about attachments. If that's the case, you might notice where this need to hold on to things really tight or withhold is coming from, because if that's in fact is the case, then it is limiting your expression. Absolutely. So look at what you hold back. You might also be feeling that you are not very abundant, so you need to hold back. Clearly, if you don't have a lot of money, you're not going to go and give money away. But what you can do is, hold on to your money as much as you need, but give in other ways. In other words, there has to be a reciprocity coming and going. If you are holding back, you're not participating in the natural flow of life, and that creates blockages. So I would, in this scenario, I would encourage you to look at giving back, whether to community by volunteering an hour a week, or doing something for someone else purely because you love what it feels like when you give. And I'm not saying commit yourself to another full-time job that's volunteering when you may not have time for yourself. That's not what I'm saying. Give in other ways. Give a compliment to somebody. If you're someone who generally walks around with your head held down, put your head high, shoulders back, become confident, and pay somebody a compliment, and notice how it feels. It feels wonderful. That feeling of feeling wonderful is you receiving the gift of feeling good. So it allows the door to open a little bit. So the you guys get the word. The flow of in and out can happen much more smoothly. The King of Coins kind of landed in this position. So it's neither upwards, upright, or reverse. When I tune into this message speaks to me about confidence, practicality and confidence. So for some of you, this is about feeling important enough to be your own boss. That may be a decision that you are thinking about making. Maybe I choose a different direction. Maybe the direction is that I start my own business. So that's for some of you. For others of you, this is about knowing that, how do I say this? Knowing that whatever you want, you can achieve, providing your mind is aligned with your heart. In other words, it's a similar message to that I gave earlier. If there is something you wish for, notice if whatever you wish for, what your emotional connection to it is. In other words, you may wish for a loving relationship, but your belief about loving relationship is that they don't exist or they suck because the ones you have experienced or witnessed, well, of that vibration. So if that's the case, then again, it's harder to attract a loving relationship, because essentially what you're saying is, I don't believe it exists. So you may have all the tools and all the skills to be able to attract somebody loving, but if you do not believe that it can exist for you, or that you can you are worth it, or whatever, then you will end up sabotaging it, and you'll create your truth. So it's important to look at your beliefs, because at the end of the day, like I said, my passion is to help you realize who you really are, and that's a divine being full of potential. And the only limits that we have are the ones we create for ourselves. So this card also speaks about independence, needing to be more independent, not needing to be independent because you are trying to run away from somebody controlling you. Because if that's the case, you may leave that situation, but then you might find yourself in a similar situation somewhere else where somebody else is controlling you. And that's perhaps you need to face some challenges you have around control. Perhaps you need to face this person and say, listen, I don't appreciate this type of behavior. So there's something there about independence and control. Is there anything else that I want to say to them? Becoming your own leader and becoming your own cheerleader. I think that's a message that's pretty straightforward. You are your worst critic, and you are your best supporter. You choose which one you choose to be. If you are a team and you had someone hating you and yelling at you, it would probably affect you, right? It would affect your mental status. It would affect your mental game. It would affect you how you feel emotionally. Essentially, at some point, it would drag you down. So the message here is, if you constantly ridicule or call yourself names under your breath or in your mind, then you are essentially not being part of your team. You are playing against your team, and that creates conflict, because two different directions. So there is a message on that as well. Becoming your own leader, becoming independent in thought. Independent thought also leads to full expression, or is more likely to lead to full expression. Perhaps you need to be much more independent. Perhaps you need to be a little bit more on your own. Doesn't mean you need to quit your job and start a business, but perhaps the type of jobs that you attract, perhaps you might want to look into something that will make you feel much more independent. Maybe a job with more responsibilities, which at first you might find scary, but then once you go into it, realizing, wow, this is actually not so bad. This is actually really good. It makes me feel really good about myself. It makes me feel really solid. There are decisions that you guys are sitting on. There's no question about it. So choices and decisions are coming up, and I do feel this is going to shift or show up. The conclusion of those decisions is going to show up around August, the end of August. So you may already be sitting on decisions. You might be thinking of making choices or directions. That's definitely coming up. Last but not least, the card of fusion and magic. It's important to know that when we go through transitions, sometimes it may feel slightly off kilter. And that's because oftentimes we face a lot of fears. And like I said in other videos, change does not mean necessarily bad. You can be amidst an incredible change, and you might be very fearful. You might be thinking of starting your own business, and the idea may provoke certain anxieties because, let's say, you grew up in a home where you didn't have very much. So the idea of being your own boss can be very scary, right? That's just a very basic example. But during those moments, those limitations come up to the surface, and they help us understand more of who we truly are. And again, when we have more awareness, we appear to have more choices. If we look at things from a certain perspective, our choices are only limited by that perspective. If our perspective widens, all of a sudden, the ability to make more choices, the prospect of it widens as well, because now you're not limited to this way of thinking. So there is something very beautiful happening. I feel for all signs. We're all in amazing times where these frequencies, whatever they mean to you, create these ripple effects in our lives, and it begins the process of change. And the change is usually for much better. But there is often resistance because, well, exciting change can be challenging, right? Starting your own business, like I mentioned. All right. I think that's all I want to leave with you. And the number 10 was symbolized, which is again completion. So I feel by the end of August, mid-September, many of you will understand what this means. And I want to say hallelujah. So this feels very good to me. It feels like a big accomplishment. It feels like a weight off my shoulders. It feels like finally I'm able to breathe. So whatever it is that you are concluding, it feels really good in the end. So with having said all that, I hope this makes sense. I hope you like what you hear. And if it doesn't make sense to you at all throughout the next 2 months, maybe this isn't for you, but chances are it's going to make a lot of sense to a lot of you. I wish you best of luck in whatever it is that you are creating. Of course, if you would like to help with figuring it out in your personal life, that information is down below for you, or you can have a session with me. We can have a session together. And aside from that, please do comment. I love reading all of them. Thank you so much once again for giving me your time. Remember, you are a powerful being full of potential. The only limits you see are the limits you put on yourself. Never forget that, okay? I wish you best of luck. Take care of yourself and see you soon.